Hello, everyone, and welcome back to A24 on the Rocks podcast. If you haven't been here before, I'd like you to know that we are the only podcast where you're going to find four movie fans who have taken up the holy endeavor of reviewing every movie in the A24 wheelhouse in chronological order while we drink. So thanks for tuning in so much. We also rotate our hosts tonight, and for this movie, it's going to be me. My name's Kelly, and I'm drinking Bud Light tonight. Even now, while I'm recording the beginning of this episode, I'm on Bud Light number 6 or so. And we're drinking the aluminum cans with army decoration on it, so maybe you think they might be leaning one way after they leaned another, and that's neither here nor there. But anyways, that's what I'm drinking for tonight. And after me, I'd like to introduce you to my significant other.
Tonight, I'm drinking Crown Royal Apple. My name's Eric Kiska, by the way.
Who are you?
Yeah, I'm drinking Crown Royal Apple, and I didn't know it was Canadian, so I'm just drinking this because I love Cole. So, Cole, what are you drinking?
Well, I don't know how you couldn't know that was Canadian, but I am continuing my white girl summer in the winters of Alaska, and I am drinking White Claw.
Good evening, world. It's Kevin K. Konkonachek, and tonight I am drinking rye whiskey and apple cider because it's fall, and I like whiskey. And if you've never mixed whiskey with juice, you should do it because it's very delicious. And when you get to the third one, your face kind of gets a little numb, and you want to talk about World War II a whole lot. So, here we go.
Hello, my friend, we'll meet again.
Okay.
Let's go.
My sacrifice.
Creed needs no part of this.
A24 on the Rocks. We are reviewing the romantic war film, The Exception. It's going to be the second movie from A24 where Christopher Plummer wants to play a Nazi. Well, not really, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Anyways, this movie is about a fictionalized account of the life of exiled Kaiser Wilhelm II, where a Wehrmacht officer is ordered to protect the life of him. And where that happens, love ensues. So, knowing that we were about to get into a romantic film, I think maybe my memory's failing me at the moment, but what was the last, A24 romantic film that we might have watched in this order? Do you guys know? Eric?
Well, I mean, we watched The Lovers for our last A24 film. What do you mean in this order? Like, are you talking about like a romantic war film, or just a romantic film?
In the A24 wheelhouse, so we're going through in chronological order, right?
Yeah.
Is there any other movie that's kind of been similar to this one, where it's like this kind of epic war, era romance?
I took comparisons to the second movie we ever watched, which was Ginger and Rosa, which was the 1960s war film that involved some romance in there. A type of different, but I was actually thinking about that film as I was watching this a little bit and was like, oh yeah, there's some similarities there.
I think this falls in the star-crossed lovers romantic, genre. And I can't really think of another star-crossed lovers romance in A24 that we've watched so far. I'm looking through the list.
Equals?
And... yeah, maybe that. Tusk, a man in a walrus, I could say probably Tusk. And that's about it, though. Yeah, not a lot of star-crossed lovers in these romantic films we've watched so far.
I mean, Romeo and Juliet have got nothing on a Nazi officer and a Jew, right?
No, probably not.
So this movie is kind of unique in that aspect. It's also unique in the fact that it's directed by a theater director. I don't know if you guys, and I want to just like go off on this other thing that our director of this movie, David Lemieux, also directed Jesus Christ Superstar live for TV.
Ooh.
Did anybody else watch that with... Yes, Eric?
Yeah, we watched that together. The John Legend
Yeah.
one? Yeah.
Yes.
John
Can we
Legend
talk
plays
about that
Jesus.
for a moment?
Yeah,
How
sure. I mean,
amazing was that?
it was great. Yeah, Jesus Christ Superstar is one of my favorite musicals. And yeah, I've never seen it. No, we saw it in person at the Detroit Opera House. Yeah, that was a really cool rendition of it too. And yeah, the TV version was also like awesome, especially you see John Legend as Jesus. That is such a like I never saw John Legend act in anything. Maybe La La Land. He was in La La Land, actually. And besides that, though, I've never seen him act in anything. And he was so good in that.
The fact that our director has been nominated for 5 Tony Awards and, you know, does work with the Shakespeare Company, Royal Shakespeare Company, Broadway, you know, and all those other things is pretty damn impressive. Do I think it really came across as anything in this film? Not so much. Meaning, like, I didn't notice anything while I was watching this film that would have been like, oh, that was an approach from somebody who specializes in theater. Maybe the performances from Christopher Plummer, but although at 87 you can't really direct that, right? He's going to just do what he can with that. But maybe some of the other performances, he did get some good stuff out of there, but I don't know if it really would influence this film too much, but I do think it's a really cool fact either way.
Sure. Cole, do you have anything to say on that? Because that was going to be my question. Do you feel like any of those kind of theater influences are something that you see throughout this movie?
I did not know until you told me, but now I just feel like I watched a really weird version of Sound of Music where no one sings the whole time. So,
But Christopher Plummer was still there the whole time.
Listen, not everything that happens in Amsterdam necessarily has to be the Sound of Music. Anyways, this whole movie was based on an 2013 novel by Alan Judd called The Kaiser's Last Kiss. Again, before we crack into the movie, I'm giving more and more preamble. Who else even was curious about the Kaiser from World War II? I want to kind of like get into the psyche of the rest of you. Like, who's a big World War II buff? Who was kind of curious about any of this kind of backstory? Because I'll go ahead and say for me, I didn't even know what a Kaiser really was. Forgive me for that, but I had no idea. Kevin?
Familiar with a little bit of World War I history and kind of the Kaiser's relevance in that and why he would be a big deal in German history when it came to World War II. I did not know too much of his existence during the Second World War. I was very interested to see kind of them pull that together. I did appreciate this film from a historical aspect. I think that there was probably a lot of, at least a historical accuracy from some of the titles and some of the references from some of the battles and some of the historical figures that we did see in the film. I appreciated kind of recognizing some of those things, as terrible as the atrocities of World War II was, to get to see the representation of guys like Himmler, and what maybe a young Nazi officer would have been like in that circumstance. So not necessarily a buff by any stretch of the imagination, but did go in with a little bit of background and did appreciate their attention to detail on the historical aspect.
Cole, are you buffing out on World War II history? Thoughts?
I would say I'm maybe like I like to dabble in the history of World War II and World War One. My when every time they mention Kaiser, all I can think about is the film All Quiet on the Western Front that came out like a couple years ago. That was very, very good. It kind of dives into like the Kaiser and their role and stuff like that in World War One and how
and a remake from like 1930s, right? One of the first like anti-war films.
Mm-hmm. So I was very interested to see, I guess, like how the Kaiser kind of gets involved in World War II, because I wasn't super familiar with, again, the Kaiser being involved. I also did not know this was like a romantic movie until about halfway through. I had no idea what this movie was about. Very bold choice all around to make this film. I felt like it was just I don't know if this was maybe a book or a story or something prior, but anyhow, very, very bold undertaking.
Yes, it was a novel beforehand. And I don't know the critical acclaim of that novel. I assume, it was well enough to get the eyes of everyone involved in this movie. Eric, I want to give you a chance to kind of weigh in, like, going into this movie, what's your amount of World War II history that you had ahead of time?
I definitely know the most about World War II and Civil War. Were you about to ask me another question, too?
I was going to say, and how important is it that you know what you knew going into it?
I feel like they did establish enough of, they put it on a silver plate for you, like what was going on with the Kaiser and how there was an ex-German monarchy that the Nazis they didn't want to publicly get rid of them, like, to the whole world, but they did want to secretly get rid of them. And I knew that, like, there was a Kaiser that was living in exile after the Nazis took reign because the Weimar Republic that's what happened right after World War II or World War I in Germany. There was a big rebellion, and basically the monarchy got destroyed, and they instituted a democracy, and the Nazis were actually, like, democratically elected, and after the Nazis took power, they got rid of democracy, as fascists do. So
Yeah. There's a lot of references to the Democratic Socialist Republic of etc.
Yeah,
in this
democratic
film.
in
Yes.
quotes. They are, as a lot of, like, fascist countries do, they like to float that they might be actually a democracy, but they really aren't, And so either way, the Kaiser, though, he was kind of a big thing in Nazi Germany because there were still some people that believed in the monarchy. And the Nazis, they kind of held up people like Friedrich Barbarossa, who was, like, a very old German monarch. They held him up as, like, the example of Aryan supremacy and an example of, like, German military power. And they didn't want to, like, outwardly say, like, we don't like the monarchy or anything. They just wanted to kind of secretly have all the power. And so that kind of context going into this film, I knew, and it did make it more interesting. Like, I wanted to see the Kaiser portrayed by somebody that was a good actor, and I actually think Christopher Plummer did a pretty good job as the Kaiser.
Yeah, so I want to immediately get into that, like our thoughts of the Kaiser himself, our thoughts of the cinematic portrayal of how that entire, it's not a castle that he lives in, it's actually in filming, it's a private property at this point, but it is in
The Netherlands, yeah.
Belgium. Yeah, it's in Belgium.
I thought it was the Netherlands.
Yep.
The filming
yeah,
was in
also-
Belgium. The setting is Netherlands. But
The setting of the
location
movie is in
Belgium.
Holland.
Okay.
Yep, but everything that's shot throughout is taking place in Belgium, and this is private property where he lives now. Anyways, the cinematography of how they shoot these scenes of the grandiose, like, outlier of how they make this estate seem like a castle. Like, these are all choices from our cinematographer that I think play off really, really well. In addition to that, and to immediately go back to the opening shot of this movie, we open up on the word I want to use is almost like pristine, dreamlike kind of scenario of this blonde young girl who looks to be dead in a field. And as time goes on, we see more and more that are dead on the field. This is in my opinion, this is a brave kind of opening for a movie. And they kind of blur the edges to make it look even more dreamlike. And then our main character wakes up, and that's the dream that he's having. And it occurs to be like a reoccurring nightmare. I found that kind of opening quite striking. It looked like a old painting to me. I don't know. Did this opening have any impact on you guys? Like, just speak up if so.
Yeah. I was, like, disturbed by the dead body. And I mean, later in the film, we see a pile of dead bodies. And I knew that this dead body had significance, probably for the main character. And we realized that it was a flashback of him seeing an actual historical event that happened, I believe it was in Poland, right? Yeah, where there was an actual war crime that was committed where they gunned down a whole village of Polish people. And after, this is a real thing that happened after the war, they convicted the people that committed that crime. I had to look up the historical significance of it. But yeah, that was a real thing that the book drew from and the movie included.
Yeah, so kind of like you just mentioned, though, like knowing the history and watching the movie, it's almost like you don't necessarily need to know one or the other. If you disagree, speak up. But I think I love that this made you want to look more into the history, but it's still a historical fiction at the end of the day, right? Mm-hmm. And you can look into those events more and more, and it's always good to kind of raise that awareness. And with the Kaiser himself, what I was looking into, because I had to like watch something that actually told me more about him, right? And he is known for, in Dutch communities, like they all had this like whispering kind of artifact of this used to be a very important man, and now he just lives here and he chops wood all day long. And they made that a thing in the movie where he chops wood all day long. So that actual historical person himself, if that's all we know, what do we think of Christopher Plummer's performance with this kind of character who we know historically was meant to be a monarch and is in exile from it? Like, how richer of a script could you have been given? How richer of a backstory could you have been given? And how did Christopher Plummer do? Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay. So I was reading that it was Christopher Plummer who was the one who brought this to the attention. He was reading the novel and brought it to his agent, who then brought it to the forefront as far as getting this adapted into film. So I think him realizing this as he was reading the novel, kind of seeing himself in this role, is very key to his performance, because he just does such a great job, because he can kind of see himself putting maybe as kind of the last vestiges of his career. He's 87 at the time of this movie, so that tells you a lot.
Wow.
When you get to the end of your career, when you're starting to look towards kind of the finish, and you do such a great job with a performance. This one was really excellent. I mean, his performance specifically was really excellent. I think there was just a touch of care to his sentimental moments. There was a touch of anger and brashness to his moments where discussing the war and some of the passionate parts. And I just really enjoyed the ending, and we'll get to that and just all of those things. But his performance was a highlight, no doubt, and he just did a really good job of embodying what I guess I could imagine an aging monarch would look like, especially in exile, when you're looking at the atrocities of your country and what you went to war for once upon a time, and now they're murdering children, and the Holocaust and all those things. So it was there was a powerful moment, and I'm sure we'll touch on it later when we talk about the dinner scene with Himmler. But in general, I thought that he just did a really great job.
Yeah, and the way that I kind of want to go about our discussion is kind of like a character study. I want to talk about almost the actors' performances as if we had just watched a play, because for me, I felt like the playwright aspect of the way that this movie was directed was like quite apparent. And it's not only because of the writing by Simon Burke. I think that the script was super powerful, and I want to get right back into those characters, but because I just mentioned the word script, I want to hear from Eric kind of your thoughts on the script of this whole movie and what you're kind of like. For me, I found it powerful. I'm not trying to throw words into your mouth, but go ahead.
So I would say I found the script to be average, actually, overall. This is my big gripe with the film, that it sort of lacks the character development of our two main characters. It made me care about our two main characters in their historical context, but it did not make me care about their romantic entanglement. That first scene where he's just like, take off your clothes. I'm just like, can you just, give us a little, like, foreplay or something, a little bit more. Like, it's like,
But he was a Nazi. He can
they gave these two people
He's a
goals
bad
in the
boy.
film, and they did a good job of placing them in history, but they forgot to give them, like, personalities outside of their goal. And they both have had, like, traumatic pasts, but even in that backstory, it doesn't make me feel a lot of emotions towards them. And that's, I mean, a more general thing. My opinions on Germans living in Nazi-occupied Germany are not very high. I don't exactly, think all of them were horrible people, but some of them were still not good people because they kind of sat
Some
by
of them were
and did
like
nothing.
the exception.
Yeah, that's just like,
boy.
that was a little, but I will say though that the plot and historical context and subtext of this movie makes up for it, and maybe it's because I'm a bit of a World War II history nut, and the whole Kaiser subplot and a maid being a secret British agent is actually like a really interesting circumstance. The romance of the film I just did not completely buy into. That's my one gripe of the film, even though I kind of liked a lot of the other plot of the film.
Okay, sure. Cole, I want to give you this soapbox that you can stand on and tell me your kind of thoughts on the script.
Yeah,
Period.
so I would say I'm Team Eric on this one. I felt like the umbrella, like the whole overarching concept was very unique and interesting, and I had never seen anyone. I had never seen any film or any kind of TV show kind of take this idea of the Kaiser after World War I and seeing this country that he fought so hard for take a very dark and interesting turn in World War II. And then, you have the aspect of a maid, like a spy, and, you get Winston Churchill and almost how, like, the British is on the monarchy side compared to, his own, Hitler at the time is almost against him. And it's, like, very unique dynamics and everything, and I thought that was very cool. But then they throw in this weird romance story that I felt it just did not stick for me. I mean, when the first time you meet the person, you tell her to take off her clothes and you basically like force her to have sex with you, but then she falls in love with you, but then she's Jewish and you're like hardcore Nazi, but you're okay with her being Jewish. But I don't know, I felt like that aspect it did not stick with me. It also didn't seem like it stuck with our Nazi guy too. He obviously loved her and he was like, I want to marry you, but I'll marry you after this whole World War II thing, blows over and we're done with, hating the Jews. I'll see you later kind of thing. So I don't know. Like the idea, but I thought maybe if they just pulled the romance out of it, it would have been a lot better.
I will say, can I say one thing? Sorry.
No.
I think that the intention of her, she said later in the film, like, I was using myself. Like, I was, I wanted to have sex with you to get more information initially. And then I fell in love with you. That's what I got from it. But at the same time, I feel like she could have done that without having sex with him. She could have flirted with him. And, it didn't need to go to the extreme of, like, okay, I'm going to undress and bend over on a table for you. It just felt a little weird that they had to add that part in, and maybe unnecessary.
Nah, I disagree with that.
Okay.
And I think that scene was so... I mean, it is eyebrow-raising when he says, get undressed. But she so clearly wanted him to say so, in my opinion. And totally was there for all of it. And she reaffirms that later in the movie where she's like, where he apologizes for how he behaved the first time, the quote-unquote first time that they met. And she goes, well, I wanted that to happen. Yeah. And I really like the call and answer almost where she comes back the second time. And she's the one who tells him to undress. And
I like that part too.
The first,
yeah.
The first question that I had written down for this entire movie, the first like overarching question was, do just looks of another person constitute an entirely moral changing life path? And that's a hypothetical, but that's, I feel like, what the movie's trying to tell me. If our main characters are supposed to be this love story, I think that some of our stronger writing and some of our stronger story comes from the Kaiser and the princess. I think that those two almost give me a better love story at the end of the movie. But to stop from getting ahead of myself, Kevin, it looks like you also would like to weigh in.
As soon as their interaction at the door, when he walks in and she answers it, Mika does, I said, will he fall for the maid? Meaning that the energy was initially there immediately. The I see you, you see me, there's some sexual energy. So that scene made it not nearly as awkward for me when the take your clothes off moment happened. It was a weird mix for me because it was like, was he using his power as the captain to be like, you're going to do this because if you don't, I'm going to take it anyway. But then she said she wanted it. And I was a little confused, but the rest of the movie made it very, very clear. And I like that they, like you said, did the callback. She explains everything. Those aspects of it made it, I guess, better, made it more digestible from a love story aspect. But I agree with you also that the better writing and the better parts of this movie do surround the Kaiser. And the book is based off the Kaiser. Therefore, this film in general should be truly based around him. And it is. I think this love story thing is kind of like weird example of the Titanic, right? So the Titanic is all about the actual boat sinking, and then we have this romance also happening off on the side.
No, that's a good example, actually.
All right.
That's a really accurate
There we go.
one.
So maybe this movie's a little bit like Titanic in that sense, from a historical aspect.
I'll say, Cole, like, I initially, like, thought, oh, he was kind of forcing himself on her, but then she comes back and says, like, yeah, you take your clothes off, but later you kind of get more context where she said, I was using myself, because he initially accused her of using him, and when he said, like, when she said, I was using myself, I think that was initially, she, like, initially wanted to get more information, and she was using her body to try to get more information into what was going on. She did actually fall in love with him. Yeah, like, I think she had autonomy in those scenes. I feel like she could have, like, maybe flirted with him a bit more as opposed to just taking her clothes off and bending over on a table. That's my thing. So
she was also
listen, if he didn't have shrapnel inside of his body, it would have never worked out.
That's true.
I don't think it was a love at first sight thing, though. That's where I'll disagree. I don't think it was a love at first sight thing. I think she did initially use him, but she knew that, like, oh, I probably could get this information in some other ways, but she was using herself to get even more information.
It was sex at first sight.
Yeah, she had lost her husband, right? So she's lost and is a widow, and it was YOLO. It was doing what you want to do while, figuring it out.
Cole, did you have anything to say?
I mean, nothing more beyond, I guess, what I just said. I will say, I guess I didn't quite pick up on the aspect where, she said she was using herself. So when you put it in that context, it definitely seems, less, I guess, creepy and shitty. But I still am just, I still am just not sold on their relationship. And like, I think Kevin was the one that said, I wish there was a little bit more flirting or interaction between the two, because really all you saw him was her being a maid, him being a Nazi, them meeting up, having sex, and then they're in love.
It felt a little too convenient. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Aw, I love that all the gentlemen involved in this think that it's maybe less romantic than I even found it. I found it kind of romantic, but that's just me. I want to talk. I know that I said we're going to do character studies, but we've touched on the top 3, I think, unless anybody wants to weigh in again on how Jai Courtney, who personally I've never seen him, who plays Captain Stefan Brandt. I don't know. I feel like I have to take on a German accent. I've never seen him in anything else. Have you guys ever seen him in anything else?
I sure have. I've seen him as
Tell me about it.
Captain Boomerang in Suicide Squad.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay, wait, so Kelly, we saw Suicide Squad. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember.
He was the guy
Captain
who threw a boomerang around and then decided to run around and got his head blown off. Yeah. So yes, I've seen him in Suicide Squad, I think.
And then he was also in Wet Hot American Summer 10 years later, and I watched that on Netflix. I've seen him, but I did not know. And also, he's Australian, so That is quite a shock to me because I actually think he did do a good German accent in this film.
Yeah.
Oh, see, like, you triggered me with that because I feel like the accents were all over the place. From
They're all British to
pretty
me.
much every actor other than Christopher Plummer. I feel like they were everywhere from somewhat British to somewhat German
I didn't know
to
what Lily James was
straight
doing
up.
as the girl. But
Straight up, I thought that he was American for like the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Okay.
Just me?
No, I agree with you. I thought the accents were weak. I didn't think they really stuck out overly, and I thought they all kind of sounded bland, and this is what would be if they weren't actually speaking German, so just use what you want to do.
It's a weird thing in film when you're trying to portray like historical events in other countries, but you're like shooting, from an American
English.
film production company, and you're just kind of wondering, like, oh, should everybody just do German accents here? Should people like speak, in English in a Dutch accent? But like, I don't know. What do you do? Like, if you don't want to go the full route of speaking in German, then how do you make it sound realistic? It's kind of a weird thing in film.
Yep.
And I think that might be a weakness on our director, if we're going to point fingers anywhere. I saw in some like backstories where the actors are really complimenting him because he's like a more gentle kind of director. And if he were not, he would probably have slapped their wrists and said, your accent needs to sound stronger. But it seems from scene to scene that didn't necessarily happen. I almost feel like I can watch the movie and see like day to day what takes happened when based on how strong certain actors' accents were. So if I was to really dissect it, I feel like I could almost put that in order. Eric, why are you laughing?
Rocky was putting a paw into the room, and then he opened the door, and I saw him pawing around on the wall. So, okay. Anyway,
You can't keep me out, mother.
I want to go back to character studies, and I want to talk about how Jeanette McTeer played her character. And does anyone have any kind of awareness of her? I'm like a complete, I want to say noob. I'm going to just say noob. I'm a noob to all of these actors. I don't know any of them from anything other than Christopher Plummer, who's been in a previous A24 movie. Jeanette McTeer, is she a big deal? How did she do? Cole or Eric, did you guys ever see her in anything?
I haven't.
She's in the menu.
She's in the menu? Holy shit.
Yeah, she's the food critic lady.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
That you hate.
I love the menu.
So,
but yeah, well, it seems this film has a lot of like indie actors in it that I've probably seen in a film or two. I just like it doesn't come to mind when I think of their name, which is very fair, except for Christopher Plummer because he, obviously was in Remember, but also he's been in a lot of like other classic films too.
Well, I want to say of the character of the princess, I feel like she was one of our stronger written characters where she holds out this hope that the monarchy is going to be reestablished. She's constantly writing letters to make sure that that does occur. And she really cares about their impression on even our captain who comes to live in their house eventually. What characters for you guys were like your big like standout like interest in the first half of this movie? Kevin, do you have a standout?
I think I've kind of already beat down how much I enjoyed Christopher Plummer's role, so I won't elaborate too much on
No,
that.
beat it down harder.
No, he was excellent, and he was
I'm
he
gonna
doesn't
clip that
need
and replay it. I
beat it down harder. I guess Himmler, the guy who played Himmler. Who was he?
This is Adir Marsan.
When you can play one of the most evil human beings ever to exist on the planet and come across as relatively creepy and intimidating, you did a good job. So not an elaborate role, but I thought he did a pretty good job. I didn't like the performance by the inspector. He was too whiny, wasn't very intimidating to be a Nazi. I don't know why he was given that spot. The role of the friar, the padre, the pastor. He was pretty good in limited roles. I don't know, nothing really sung for me outside of Plummer, maybe because of his star power and his command and everything else. Everything else was a little dimmer in comparison to him. He overshadowed everything, and not in a bad way. He just was this all-powerful acting experience in this film, and I think I'm maybe overselling it a little bit because it was probably the really big bright spot for me in this entire film. Probably the only really thing I truly enjoyed about it, to be honest with you.
Okay, we've opened it up then to the second half, where Himmler's even present. Do I want to ask you guys more about standout acting performances? I think I want to give you guys the field on that. Cole, do you have anyone other than Christopher Plummer, as far as their performance or as far as their character was written, that really stood out to you that you might want to talk about?
I mean, I'm going to have to stretch for it just because I felt like Christopher Plummer, again, was the star of the show. The princess, Janet, I think she... what she was given, she did a very well job, very good job. She was very, very good at it. But I will say the person that I probably liked the most besides Plummer was Captain Boomerang. I thought he did a excellent job of being the stereotypical Nazi guy, and I thought he fulfilled that role pretty well. There's a couple scenes where I thought, where he first sees the priest with the Gestapo, and he's kind of shaken up or whatnot. But overall, I thought, I would say the overall performance of this film was fine. Christopher Plummer was the shining star, but everyone did a fine job. I just wish they had more substance, or just there was something more to it, I guess, overall.
All right, Eric, this is your turn. Tell me about standout performances, regardless of the entire film.
I agree. It was Christopher Plummer was the standout performance. I think Janet McTeer did a very good job as Princess Hermine, and Eddie Marsan as Heinrich Himmler was a standout performance to me. He walked in the film, and I was just like, this guy's fucking evil.
Thank you.
Sometimes when an actor walks into the screen and they have a certain ambiance about them, you can feel the chills in your body, and I felt that with him, and that was a good another example of that would be Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lamb. The second you turn the corner and see his face, you get chills in your body, and I actually felt that with Eddie Marsan in this film. I wouldn't say it was to the extent that I did with Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, but yeah, he did a good job of just being the creepy Nazi guy, especially. Oh my God, when he talked about just killing children, basically for sport.
Dude, that scene. Whew. That scene was the highlight of this movie for me, in the way that it made me feel something. Yeah, I guess.
The death dinner conversation.
Yeah.
Kevin. Wow. Go off on it.
Oh, just literally, it was the highlight of the film for me. It was the one thing that made me go, holy wow. Everyone's reaction to him, the way the room fed off of it.
Right there, holy wow.
Oh, holy wow. The way that the historical aspect played into it, knowing full well that they couldn't do a damn thing because this is the second most powerful man in the entire Nazi regime. It was palpable. And the way they had set him up as being this, sex pest right off the bat, cheating on his wife and having the hooker in the room and having all of these other things, you just know that this guy is pure evil. And that scene was just brilliant. Just the laissez-faire way of discussing murdering disabled children with shots of drugs to the heart was just so chilling because it was real. I think I wrote it down. It was something along the lines of basically that. It was just it was the most chilling thing because of the reality of the history and knowing that's exactly what happened. And that was true fucking real life, that monster actually existed. Just bonkers.
And I do have something to say, the Germans in here aren't exactly redeemable. I think the film tries to make them a little redeemable. And a lot of them generally weren't anti-Nazi until they heard of the grim details from Himmler of Nazis killing children. But before that, they didn't really have a lot of problems with killing Jewish people and Bolsheviks in their country. Princess Hermine was completely fine. They took care of a couple of Bolsheviks at the Night of Long Knives. And it was almost like they were okay with the killing of adult Jewish people and Bolsheviks just dying, and the children being killed was just a step too far. So I feel they're all a little bit guilty by association, and I do truly believe that, like, not all Germans in Nazi Germany were as bad as the Nazis, but a lot of them just got swept up into the Nazi party, taking hold of their country by force, and they weren't exactly good people either, though. Like, I don't, like, want to buy into this belief that, like, the Germans in Nazi Germany were, like, any of them were that good of people, unless they were actively rebelling against the Nazi party, which in this movie, they were not really doing that until the very end of the film. And I don't really buy that innocence from them, which is another thing of believability with this film.
Well, they were in Netherlands, right? So they were not in Germany.
Well, some of them were in Germany before, and then, I mean, Himmler and Princess Hermine were definitely aware of the Night of Long Knives and the Nazis going around killing a bunch of Bolsheviks and Jewish people. So,
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing I think about this movie, is that history almost takes, like, a backseat. It's set in a historical era, and it's an important one because you literally have Nazi flags in front of you. You literally have Himmler in the movie, but it's supposed to be about romance and how that kind of bridges the gap. And, like, for me, I think I've already revealed my cards that I think it's almost about, like, an older romance than it is about this newer one, though the newer one is, like, more exciting, though it's just based on, in my opinion, just, like, two beautiful bodies is what the two of them fell in love with. But there's this beautiful love between the Kaiser and the princess's romance that comes into play not until later in the movie. And I love that this movie kind of parallels those two kind of relationships. And one that kind of stands the test of time, that's based on hope. And when they find out that their hope is not going to last, it's not going to be the thing that kind of bridges that gap and gets them back to where they wanted to be, they're still kind of okay with it. So I kind of want to open the door then to more the end of the film. And at the same time, I realize we haven't talked about the score of the film. For me, the score and the cinematography of the film, it really wants to be quite grandiose. And I do definitely think while watching this movie, I was like, I'm watching a, like, quote unquote movie, like big screen kind of production. I don't know if you guys kind of felt that way. I don't know if it's just because it's like a wartime romance, if I would feel that way about like any movie that's in that same kind of genre. But I guess my question is, Cole, when you were getting onto the ending paths of this movie, was your impression the same as the beginning? Did it feel like a big, huge thing to you? Did it feel like a great big production, or were you exhausted? Somewhere in between.
I liked, I think you kind of nailed it with like the big production and the, like, you know, the big house and like beautiful sceneries, and definitely, you know, put a lot of thought and money into it. But I felt like the end of kind of, I don't know, I like almost felt like they blew all their budget already, and then the ending was just a lot of kind of people sitting at desks or, you know, being handed a letter, and didn't feel as big and grand as it did. So I don't know, I felt like it kind of fell flat or maybe trailed off a little bit for me. I definitely was a little bit exhausted towards the end of it. I will say I will give this movie props for showing both male and female nudity. So props to that.
What
so
a segue.
you know,
Let's talk about the boobs and the
At least they
penis.
they hang the dong, you know?
yeah, that's what
At
I'm
least
saying.
there
Like, you know,
was
we're talking about
flaccid
beautiful
Gotta
bodies,
have
and you know they're forcing the
Yeah.
poor maid to strip down, but she turned it and she made him whip his dick out and show the world. So, you know, at least we got had that going for us.
Always pro male nudity in film, so.
We have
Yeah,
heard
it
this
needs to be
before.
more
This
of
is
it,
one
you
of
know?
Eric's
I
standpoints.
think I dropped my jaw and I looked at Eric and I said, look at male nudity.
They did it. They fucking did it. And you know, this movie definitely crossed off a few things that I had never expected to see in a film, which was like a love story of them trying to maybe make me like the Nazi guy, but also I never thought I would see just a Nazi dick. So that was definitely like something that I never thought I would see. I don't know if I would say I wanted to see it, but you know, I can't say any other movie's gonna do that.
I asked myself the same question. I'm like, am I supposed to feel sympathetic towards this Nazi all of a sudden because he disagreed with the SS and beat them up? I mean, he did, I guess, stand against them and was doing it for his country. It's very apparent in the film that he cares about his country more than he cares about the policies of whoever. But yeah, it was interesting. They were like, this is your main protagonist. You must love him. But he's a Nazi.
Yeah, I said one of my questions for you guys was, can we root for a Nazi even if he is the exception?
That's the whole point of the movie. There you go. You just fucking nailed it. Because he is the exception, we have to root for him because he is the fucking... God damn it. This movie's not that clever. They should not do that. That's bullshit.
Yeah. Like, here's my problem.
I wasn't a big fan of the protagonist in this film. I'll just say that.
No, either was I, Eric. I'm with you. He didn't do anything really redeeming for me whatsoever, honestly.
No, like, my problem is they're like, yeah, he stood up against a fellow Nazi in one specific tragedy that he witnessed, but in every other aspect, he's just like, that one SS officer, he gave us a bad name. I'll tell you what. and it's like, no, man, y'all are pretty bad here. And I was hoping that when the maid, Lily James, said that no, like, he's not the exception. Like, kind of you are, or like, he's the what did she say? He's the rules. Yeah. Like that's what they're supposed to do. I was hoping that something was going to change, but it really didn't, to be honest. Or at least it didn't feel like it to me. In our Nazi Captain Boomerang man.
Yeah. Certainly. Eric, do you want to give kind of thoughts on, I know it's a big question. I'm asking basically your thoughts on the whole end of the entire movie as we come up to about our 50-minute mark. Lots of thoughts on, like, I want you to touch on cinematography. I want you to touch on score and just kind of how they wrapped up this entire film.
I like the score of the film. It was a grand cinematic score that was needed for a war film like this. Cinematography, I felt like there wasn't a ton to write home about. Like, I can't really think of a lot of shots looking back, like, ooh, that would be a beautiful picture. Maybe some of the shots of the mansion they were living in. I kind of like that. But there weren't a lot of other shots like that. And the acting in this, like, Jai Courtney and Lily James were just fine. But it was really Christopher Plummer and Janet McTeer that made this film a little more than maybe just an average film, I would say. But yeah, like, I just think the plot has some problems, and our character development definitely has some problems. And the ending, the whole kind of, like, deception where he kills two Nazi officers, drives out, like, and, of course, our Kaiser Wilhelm, like, he looks like he's about to die, like he is dizzy, and it's all used as a distraction to get our main female protagonist away from the castle and, like, get her to freedom, basically. I found that to be a interesting deception. Was I on my feet the whole time in suspense? I don't think I was. I don't think it was exactly like this film where I was so much in suspense I was, like, rooting for them until they reached the final cross of the ribbon, the end of the marathon, as to speak. So it like worked as an ending, but it did not, like, make me feel any extra way about this film, I would say. So that would be my thoughts on the ending.
Kevin, I'm going to kind of ask you the same, but I'm going to curtail it and kind of sandwich you into on the ending and also throughout the movie, there was this relationship that was budding between like the Kaiser and our spy maid. And not to say that you have to give a thought on it, but it was something that was a string that carried us through to the end, where they're all the way until they're sitting in the back of this escape vehicle. What were your kind of thoughts on that budding relationship? What did it mean for the Kaiser's character? What did it mean for her character? And general thoughts on the ending as well.
So I thought they did a great job of establishing her relationship with the Kaiser through all points of this film. From the introduction, where she's the new girl on the staff, and he latches onto her from talking military, right? Asks her opinion about what the moves are of Hitler and what she would do in that circumstance. So we get kind of a playful introduction to her character in relation to the Kaiser. And then from there, he's obviously the plot driver as far as once their romantic tryst is found out, how they're allowed to continue to stay on. Mm-hmm. It develops into kind of a grandfatherly relationship, which I did appreciate. I think they, made it very clear, like they can have open conversations about past loves when she opens up to the Kaiser about her interest in a man at the time. And he talks about how he, had married in the past, even to the scene where he allows them to continue because he says that he's got many vices, but one of them is not being a hypocrite because of his past children out of wedlock. I thought that scene was pretty powerful, honestly. Mm-hmm. He did a great job of kind of just breaking down all of the noise around that situation and just being like, you're two people that I trust regardless if one of you is a British spy and the other one is a person who's only here because he got desk assigned after being hurt during a Nazi incursion. Like, I thought that he was a grandfather throughout a lot of those scenes, and even towards the end when he was the reason that they were able to escape, from that perspective of being like, hey, she's the spy and she's gonna try to kill you and the SS is coming. And he's like, well, you better fucking get her in here quick. And I was like, yeah, it's Grandpa, get her in here, let's go. So the ending was better than the rest of the film for me. I think as they were kind of progressing throughout that whole thing, I was engaged with it much more than I was during the middle. And I think that relationship was important because you got to see a lot of humanizing factors from him and his character.
Great answer. That's totally how I felt about the two of them as well. I don't know if Cole and Eric, if you guys want to weigh in one last time, one last round of thoughts before we give reviews.
I felt like this movie was, for the most part, very historically accurate and representative of the time, which I did enjoy. I was looking at it under a microscope trying to find something to complain about for historical inaccuracies. And
I knew you were. I was watching this, I'm like, damn, they better be good because Cole's going to fucking rip them a noon if they're not. Yeah.
I realistically couldn't find much. The only real scene was the guy who was doing the Morse code was using his wrong hand. Ooh, but maybe he's just goofy.
Got him.
Fuck that noise. Sorry. Morse code.
Rip, bozo.
Ooh.
Yeah. Otherwise, I thought the costumes and the set designs and the overall aesthetics were all very, very well done. Christopher Plummer, very, very fun guy, did a fantastic job. But I think this weakest point in this film was just its overall writing, and I think they were trying to do something. They were trying to force something into an already interesting story and dynamic that I wish they explored. I really wish we got more of the Kaiser and his kind of that relationship of post World War I going into World War II. That ending with Captain Boomerang shooting the SS officers. I did enjoy that, and I was excited to see that the Kaiser was also on his side. It almost became
Courtney, Cole. Jai Courtney.
Jai Courtney. Captain Boomerang. That's what I've been saying the whole time. I love just the ending was almost like a buddy cop thing of the old man pretending to be sick so they can smuggle out the guy's girlfriend. But it just happened to be during Nazi times, which was kind of funny. But I will say I was disappointed that when they got out and he dropped off Lily James, she asked him to like, you're gonna have to come with me. They'll kill you. And he's like, nah. Someone else shot them. I'll be good. I'll see you later. I was just like,
It was so just like
nonchalant, but he wasn't
this guy's
wrong. I didn't question it. I was like, yeah, he's probably right.
I mean, he's definitely like probably right, but like, fuck, man, just fucking if you love her, why are you staying? Right? Like, have the Nazis really been that good to you?
He's practical.
Is he
at that
really?
same
Because
interaction was her basically looking at him, trying to stop herself from telling him like I'm pregnant, and he just says, "I know."
Yeah, I know.
That happened right there with that exchange, and I was like, oh, I can read her mind too. I know what she's trying to say, and I like that they didn't say it right away. Made me feel smart.
All right, you know what I didn't like about this film is that stupid Morse code throughout all of it. From the very opening scene throughout every fucking aspect, it was... Yeah, I get it. You're fucking Morse coding, and the whole point is you're going to find the preacher who did it. But you literally... Oh, it was so annoying. I was just like, I want to turn this off. Just stop beeping. Just stop it.
I didn't know what it was at first, and then I realized what was going on. And
immediate first scene was the heartbeats mixed with Morse code is my very first note. I was like, fuck.
Yeah. My grandpa did Morse code in World War II in Japan,
cool.
And so like actually did give me a little interest in it, where I was just like, oh, so this is what it's like to do Morse code.
Cole, you should do a deep dive.
Exactly. Yeah, this is what my grandpa did in Japan.
I want to know if the Morse code was legit or if they were just literally doing beep, 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 beep. They were just like tapping buttons just for the shits and giggles of it.
I don't know. It's a good question.
You should find out for us.
I'll find out for you.
We don't still know Morse code, but there's enough people that do that have
Somebody that does, I'm sure.
tuned into that movie to know. I bet there's people that are like specialists in Morse code that are hired by movie production houses just for that.
I'd also
just
like
to
to
make sure
complain
it's accurate.
about the scene
Probably
where they
World War
had
II
like
veterans, yeah.
the sexy times. One of the second or third times they were getting together, and then they immediately transitioned to the scene with the dead bodies in the mass grave. It's like that was just so awkward.
I guess he was asleep, and then he started having a nightmare. Yeah.
It was so weird. It was just like, what?
Sex was so good, he passed out into his reoccurring nightmare.
Thank you. I guess that was what they were going for, but it was just weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Silliness. Eric, any final thoughts? I need to ask you, even.
Yeah, I'm drunk rambling, but I have a bunch of thoughts.
Well, you can get it on your final go, but
I
thoughts, Eric, before your review? Or do you want to jump straight to your
I'll just jump
review?
straight into the review. I mostly...
Go! It's review time. For those who haven't listened before, we rate our movies on a scale of A to F, 24, including E. So
for some of us.
With this comes part the end, where Eric's going to be our first to rate this movie.
All right. So, the acting in this overall, like, I found it to be good. Jai Courtney, Lily James were more average to me, but then Christopher Plummer and Janet McTeer really took this to another level, and I feel like that really saved the film. And, like, our historical context of, like, creating a story about the Kaiser in Exodus in the Netherlands, I found that to be really interesting, but then it was the romance that kind of bogged it down for me. I'm sorry to say, like, there was just very little character development with our two main characters. Right off the bat, you take your clothes off, and I feel like we could have just gotten a little more flirting or something to create that character. And I'm sure the book does this, and I'm sure the book, like, probably expands on these thoughts exponentially, but like just the movie does not. It just kind of drops you right into it. I feel like this film like wasn't a bad film either, but it just wasn't great, and so that really drops it in the middle of the road for me. And I'd say if you're a World War II like history nut, I think that this is worth watching because there's not a lot of films about Kaiser Wilhelm or, the German monarchy after World War One. Very little. If you're a big romance fan, I think that you could actually like this film too. I'm kind of like in the middle of both, where I am not. I like a good romance film if it really provides its good character development, and then I like a good war history film if it really explores those things. But then this kind of goes like a part way in between those two genres, and it doesn't carry it over the edge for either of them for me. So I will land in the middle and give it a C, 24.
Fair enough. I'm going to go right after you and state that I think that this is a good romance for me. Not necessarily because of our main two actors, but because of the world that they are in. I like that it's a war era movie that doesn't show me any war. It's all implied war. It's all things that you have an awareness of. It's not like you need to know every single in-between, but you need to know enough that when Hitler's second-hand man shows up to the mansion, you know that it's really important. And you know that because the characters are letting you know that as well. The fact that they all stand out, the fact that even before our main character, the captain, shows up, you see the maids running around making sure that everything's in order. They make sure that we know that they're low on staff, that they need the help, that they're supported by the government that exiled them. All of these kind of things, they, as Eric said, spoon-fed you, but it's so much more than that. That's so well written, I feel, into the characters, where it just felt like caramel to me. It all just flowed together, and it was sweet, and it was well written for me. I liked the characters, but like Cole said, they were trying to force something into an already interesting story. And I'm sorry to steal that from you, Cole, but that's how I did feel about the main romance of this movie. I feel like it was a romantic in the proper sense, where you look at a painting and you call it a romantic, but it's not because of two lovers loving each other. It's just a romantic piece. And that's how I felt about this movie as well. I don't like that this romance was basically two characters that have these strong moral convictions, or you would think so, or else you think that they're very young people that don't hold very strongly onto their convictions, even in wartime when they should more than ever, because they see a gorgeous body in front of them. And by all means, the two actors perform well and are gorgeous, so props to them for that. But everybody acts well in this movie. I think that watching it with the acting involved, with the cinematography, which I really liked, their kind of muted, dulled colors, which looked almost of the time. So, that was a conscious choice. And I really appreciated that aspect to it. I appreciated the score, other than a few montages where I feel like it just really was grating on my ears. But otherwise, I think the writing, I think the directing was very much like a play, where it was this twisted drama throughout. We knew things as the audience that the characters didn't know. We knew this was upcoming. They didn't know it. And even if that difference was 2 minutes or 20 minutes, I felt like we were in the know or we weren't. So I was sitting on my seat. I was interested throughout this entire movie, and it was against, I think, my best judgment, or even what I thought this movie was going to be for me. I really enjoyed it, and I found the pacing to be well and good, and I did like it. So this all said, I like, again, doubling back to, it's just already interesting with the Kaiser. They inserted something else that isn't the strongest suit, and that's supposed to be what I care about the most. So that is the big stab into this movie, being the main aspect of this movie. B minus 24. So Cole, why don't you come after me, because I quoted you enough.
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone has said this before, but this movie already had such a good story, and then they just tried to jam something else. No. Yeah, it like, you know, I think I've already covered a lot of it. You know, I am very interested in the history and aspect, and especially, again, that time between, like, the end of World War One with Germany and that whole, you know, the empire, and then into World War II, and just like that kind of transition is always very interesting to, you know, how did a, you know, a whole country, right, get to the point of just completely becoming essentially the, you know, hallmark of an evil villain for, you know, generations beyond, right? Like it's such a unique point in history and stories and stuff. But then, you know, with all this romance, and it just didn't really feel like real romance, and they never really made me, it's like they wanted me to think that this, you know, Nazi Captain Boomerang was a good guy, but he still stayed true to his ways of being a Nazi. And I don't know, I felt like it was a very bold choice to throw in the romance and the star-crossed lover aspects and stuff. And maybe if it was put in a less intense and kind of volatile part of history, and was more of more fantasy version, I guess, than set in, like, you know, 1940s, you know, not in Germany, but a part of the Nazi regime and stuff. I think it may have done better as a romance, but, you know, props to them for trying to make a romantic film. I did not find it super romantic. I kind of just, I watched it, felt a little disappointed. Felt like, you know, this definitely was not, I would say, a terrible movie. I think they had some good points, and they could have done something very, very cool and interesting, but it just felt flat, and maybe the writing wasn't necessarily the best, or just don't do the romance, man. Or if you're gonna do the romance, make it more romantic instead of just, you know, two people banging it out all the time. I mean, that's, I don't know. I overall, I don't know if it's worth seeing, but if you're interested in the subject matter, or if you want to see like a Nazi whip his dick out, you know, more power to you.
Well, what a great selling point, Cole. That's the
Yeah.
one.
That's
Yeah,
what
I'm gonna
break
give
it down to.
I'm gonna give this a C minus. C minus 24, guys.
So what to say that already hasn't been said? That's what you usually find yourself in when you get to the 4th of 4 in reviews. Someone's got to do it. So I will gladly be that guy.
So say it.
I'm going to say it. I didn't like this movie. I really didn't. From start to finish, it was boring. There really wasn't a ton to it that I was like, yeah, I'm enjoying myself. It might have been me procrastinating it into a weeknight, work night, watch at the end of the night. It probably had something to do with it. But honestly, it just really wasn't anything great. Christopher Plummer did fantastic. I loved watching him. But at the end of the day, he played an old man. He was 87 when he did it. It was still slow and plodding. The rest of it was a little weird. Cole touched on it. The sex aspect was kind of just blunt in your face. It was just kind of like, hey, we're going to bang it out. Sweet. Now it was relatively predictable. I knew that she was the British spy from the introduction of her as a character. I don't know if that makes me any headier than anyone else, but it was just kind of like, well, here we are. This is clearly the way this is going. I didn't appreciate the idea that they could blend real world and fantasy. That was cool. So I could imagine myself being like, this could be a real life documentary or a historical documentation of something that actually happened, which it was in World War II. But then you add a fantastical element in it. So they did a good job with that. I didn't touch on the music too much because it really wasn't too much. It was grandiose. They did a really good score from the perspective of using a lot of orchestral elements and made it very nice. But there wasn't anything to write home about. Performance-wise, we all touched on it a little bit. But Christopher Plummer gets the A, and everyone else was just kind of there to make his realization happen, or his fantasy, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. I am rambling. That's very clear. This movie existed, as I told Eric before we started, and he echoed in his review. Was great, wasn't bad, wasn't anything. It was just kind of there. So we're gonna give it a C24. Yeah, we'll go C24. That's gonna do it. Good enough. Awesome. Average at best.
Very good. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the discussion of this movie. And thank you all for listening very much. We really appreciate you. And we will appreciate you even more if you let us know that you enjoyed this movie by giving us a positive review or just an honest review. We'll take either feedback. So make sure you do leave us that review and you follow us on all kinds of socials. We are everywhere and we are growing and we are legion. So thanks again. We really appreciate it. Good night.
Ready?
Africa.
Two lovers.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Forbidden from one another.
What is he doing?
A war,
War divides their people. And a
Secret tunnel.
mountain divides them apart. Build the path together.
What is
And I forget the last couple lines, but secret tunnel.
Secret tunnel.
Secret tunnel.
Through the mountain. Secret tunnel. All right, there.
A24